Okay, so here it is. It took us a while to get here.
Quite a while, in fact.
Yeah, so I think it's really important that, since we're doing a channel reintroduction, that we come up with some new retcons.
Yeah, good idea.
I mean, we're already like an interdimensional thing, so I guess it would just be hard to say that a time anomaly has amalgamated um, the past material that we have made with the current material. And I guess maybe that's a
Maybe
little.
like the fact that how we had to be like reinvited by like getting the flyers back that could cause like a certain like a loop or something.
Yeah,
Sort of like a time paradox.
that we have closed the time loop or that we've opened the time loop.
Yeah, maybe or even like cause our own sort of anomaly in time.
Mm-hmm. Wow, this is already coming together handsomely. I didn't think we'd actually have a web of concepts
Literally.
just coming right out
Get
of
it?
that. Yep.
Literally. Because
Yep.
QB's a spider thing.
Yep.
Eh.
QB is a spider thing, creating a web of the
Oh yeah, by the
multiverse.
way, hey, like I actually imagine like the holes he has like pretty much going right through like his forearms and legs. I actually like thought of those to be something like you know how bugs have like little holes that they use to breathe.
Yeah.
Well, that's what Cube has. Those are like his ventricles or whatever they're
Mm-hmm.
called.
Yeah.
Pretty much
I'll have to
the
look that up. Maybe we'll get the
ones.
biological term during the show.
Yeah, I believe so.
Mm. I mean, in the meantime, if you just want to look that up in your browser, then feel free to.
Yeah,
All
that
right.
makes sense.
Let's go ahead and let's get started. Hello, cats and kittens, felines and felidae, humans and variant humans in every race, class, and subclass. Welcome to another episode of Brainy the RPG Cat. And well, while we're saying another episode, we're doing something a little bit different from normal. Is that we're doing a soft reboot.
Yep,
We're
consider this a reintroduction to the channel.
Yep.
Oh, since things are going to be changing, and so we will be discussing some of those changes here with you as we reintroduce to this channel.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's not an awful lot that's going to be changing. The main thing that is going to be changing is we're going to be spending a significant amount of time on the tabletop channel. Is that from now on just straightforward tabletop RPGs all the way through? This is radio free tabletop RPGs from this point forward.
Yes, sir.
Probably a change that we should have made some time ago, but
Yeah, probably.
well, we're making it now. And
Well,
so,
hey, better late than never.
mhm. So introductions beginning. I'm Brainy the RPG Cat. I am a cat that is part of a group of wizards called the Denarian Wizards, Worshippers of Dinah, Goddess of All Knowledge. My full name is actually um, he he who astounds with his immediate language. I haven't used that in a long time.
Quite a
Okay, well,
long
anyways,
time.
it's gonna be in one of the videos. Um,
Yep, and I am the ever vigilant and fairly creepy sometimes apprentice of a Brainy Cube. Hey,
yes.
hey, the feral bug child who has been raised by giant spider, is after her somehow wandering off from his main species of the Arthrophae, and following a giant primordial moth goddess in the process.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, we actually also found them inside of a wine cellar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's all of the character information aside.
Well, from both of us.
Well, yeah. And other than our regularly scheduled tabletop RPG actual play series, one shots from the Meowing Portal, the lore is really not all that important.
Yeah, but it's still fun.
Mm-hmm. But we're about to give you some more of it because we're gonna go on. We're gonna play a couple of videos on my YouTube channel, Brainy the RPG Cat. The first
Oh
one,
boy.
yeah, is the origin video, and so I do appreciate QB helping me out, particularly with by providing a second voice for this. So
Yeah, it's the least I could do for like scaring your bartender friend by being in the cellar
mhm.
first time we met.
So yeah, we're gonna go ahead. We're going to watch this, and so this is the story of Brainy the RPG Cat. This is the story of Brainy the RPG Cat, and in many ways it's a very typical story. One day an old man found a stray kitten in a library, and he chose to keep it as a mascot, and to keep him in gentle company. But this was no ordinary old man, for he was Bosch, the high elf headmaster of the Library of Dinah, a very not ordinary library dedicated to the goddess of all living knowledge. And before long, Bosch would learn that this was also no ordinary cat.
Hello.
Learning that the cat was intelligent, the wizard took it upon himself to teach him to read and write, and learn history and the ways of magic. He was quite taken with the lessons he got from games using cards and dice. And soon the cat grew into an adult, a scholar, a full-fledged wizard in his own right, and once and forever one of the most dedicated librarians in Denier. The wizard bestowed upon him a name in the tradition of all cat people. He who astounds with his immediately brilliant ideas. But the library wizards have taken to calling him Brainy the RPG Cat. And let me tell you, it hasn't been a bed of roses. Okay, so yeah, that's usually the video that we show at the front of our streams, and we'll be seeing more of it just coming up in the next few streams. OS Devin is in the chat right now.
Oh hey, Otto's here, or at least like in the chat he is. Hey Otto.
No. OS Devin is usually my mod.
Oh, never mind.
Otto's is Game Night 00.
Ah, oh, mistook. It's hard to see in this thing.
He just did first and also head pats, so there's your
you know the drill.
Brown, 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 brown. That's some good purry.
Yes,
That is some
Mr.
wizard
Brainy.
purry, yes. All right.
Wizard kitty cat purring.
And of course, the other video that we always play is our music video. By Cascading Failure, the band that is led by our good friend Joe, Game Night 00, who also plays Auto Doc Blue 37.
Yep, our main automaton paladin friend.
Mm-hmm. Our automaton paladin friend. Is that the way you put it?
Yes, automaton paladin friend.
Paladin friend. Okay, I'll have to remember that one. It's great to see you too, OS Devin. Thank you very much for tuning in.
This fearless caddis is the raddest, has skills of the baddest, magic, slinging for status, practically unmatched, runs all of the gamut, in fact, he's a reference games and chatting, bent wizardly hatting, questing, stacking, napping, this cat witty banter, seeking kitty answers, roll 20 to scamper, tune in, and enjoy the ride. Brainy, the RPG Cat. Brainy, the RPG Cat.
All right, I love that.
Yeah, absolutely amazing work by our main metal man.
hmm I mean, there was a time when I was in DMs with him, and and I was basically telling him, "You should absolutely make this into a metal song because metal and fantasy goes hand in hand these days,
Yep.
or technically always has. I know I've got an LP in my
Yeah, pretty
record
much always
collection.
has.
Yeah, I've got an LP of my record collection of a bunch of Vikings that were drawn by Frank Frazetta, and it's still unopened. I haven't taken the plastic wrap off it to see what kind of music it actually is. Yeah, I thought that would. All right. Um,
Yep.
excuse me. Is yeah,
Oh, all good.
I'm starting to develop a talking mouth, and that's unfortunate because we only just started, and I just
Nah, it's
drink a
all
little
good. It's
water
all
here for
good.
a second. 100%, 100%. Thank you very much. So, as we said, is that we regularly run a TTRPG actual play show on this channel. It's called One Shots from the Meowing Portal, and for our engine, we use the Prowlers and Paragons Ultimate Edition book.
Yes, sir. This little system right here actually focuses more on more superhero things like what you would see in comics.
mhm. So, we're a fantasy series, but we are using a superhero book. And we mitigate that by basically saying that, magic in our lore is just incredibly powerful, particularly in our homeland, which is also referred to as the land of infinite mana. I have a
Or the
tendency.
realm of infinite mana.
mm, I have a tendency to subtitle all of my fictional realms so that people will still actually remember what the purpose of them is. That's just a thing that I do. And
Yep, that's
so,
just how Brainy's brain works.
hmm and so let's see, where are we going to start in this introduction here? You're gonna read a little bit about the
The basics.
basics, yeah, of Prowlers and Paragons. So once again, ordinarily a superhero engine. Characters are beings who populate the game world, putting descriptions and other narrative elements. Characters are defined by a number of mechanical characteristics, abilities, talents, powers, traits, perks, and flaws. And so, um, this is just a traditional, four to six stat concept behind every tabletop RPG.
Yep, pretty universal for most of these sorts of games.
hmm And so then they have things like ranks, and then they have concepts like challenge roles, um, thresholds, establishments, and compromises. This is going to be just a very brief overview here. Um, Types of combat, unlike other forms of tabletop RPGs, we're not terribly limited when it comes to um, the just the length of a map, a significant amount of um, range and movement. Um,
Yeah, we
as
tend to improvise.
it says right here in this section, range and movement are handled abstractly in Prowlers and Paragons, rather than measure distances precisely. Three ranged classes are used to approximate distances. Moving takes time but
Yeah, that
doesn't count
terrain
as an
sort of thing gets
action.
even more like confusing since American swim and I could pretty much walk on walls.
Yeah, is that just speed is kind of approximate to whether you have a normal running speed or if you have an absolute running speed like the superhuman running speed like the Flash.
Yeah, it's subjective.
hmm
Like,
And
sure, you can and run laps pretty good, but you can't like run so fast that you can literally break the time barrier.
so characters are created based on a power level system. We have a tendency to do power level 150, which has a trait cap of 16 dice rolls for every potential action.
Yep, but pretty much once again pretty universal in most tabletop role playing games like this.
Mhm. Professor Brain Xavier and Spider QB. That's what Devin
Yes,
is calling us in the chat right now.
pretty much, essentially.
Mm,
Except Brainy doesn't really need a wheelchair.
yeah.
I mean, sure, he does need to be carried, but he's not handicapped.
And I'm pretty sure that QB can hold down a girlfriend.
Yes, I
Mm.
have done it multiple times with things far heavier than the average high schooler.
Oh, okay. Well, not exactly what I
I
meant,
mean,
but
I
mm,
have hold up Marin and Otto and you when we were exploring that pretty much the mind home
mhm.
paradox maze thing.
Well, this brings us neatly into the concept of abilities, talents, and powers. Once again, is that these six main stats are what govern the general stat list. Then
That's
talents.
right. Specifically for me, what makes me able to like hoist up everybody
Mm-hmm,
is so easily is that I have put many powers into might, which means that I'm physically very strong.
mm-hmm. Devin in chat says, "Ooh, that's a mean dig at Peter." No, I mean it's true.
Well, hey, come on, he got his cell phone quicker than he did Gwen.
Mm-hmm. All right. So talents. Things like academics, charm, commands, coverts, medicine, investigation,
All
streetwise
sorts of different little
survival,
talents.
and then powers, which is what makes up the crux of a
The
lot of
real
what we
meat of
determine.
this big old tabletop and nerdy burger.
Mhm. And so we use just the basic concept of the mana pool. Is that people just have a tendency to draw from different areas of different elements that exist in the mana pool. The usual ones: fire, water, um, light, dark, plant,
All sorts of different elemental things.
and
Some that
and
include like
mhm,
the air. So like benders, but like in the avatar, or but like you add like several more.
mhm. And concepts like the undead ghosts usually fall into shadow, as does the majority of QB's special abilities.
That's right. And with Otto and most celestial beings that would fall into the light category.
Hmm. So, so yeah, it's just a great, just a big laundry list of superpowers that just exists in this
Big old
concept. So,
laundry list.
mm,
One that I have, which is pretty common within all the spider or people like heroes, is wall crawling,
yep,
which as it suggests, it allows me to pretty much stick to walls and ceilings.
yep. In the book is usually referred to as spider climb. We also
Yep.
have the ability to just use elemental control powers as a form of elemental magic. It's typically used
Yep.
by our regular character Marin, who controls water.
Yep, that is correct. Although it did not fare her too well against Iseton,
Mm-hmm.
and his ability with elemental control with ice was simply too thick for water to get through like unfrozen.
Mm-hmm. And so that's effectively the way that we're using that. We're making a creative use of a engine that is not necessarily fantasy based, but we use it in order to create our fantasy universe. And
That's correct.
the authors of this book actually cite some existing superhero books as part of their inspiration for creating Prowlers and Paragons. And so um, they refer frequently to books like Savage Rifts, which was made of a combination of Savage Worlds and the Rifts engine. They also um, uh, have a uh, a setting created by originally by one of the two authors called Modern Gods. And so this was all
Oh,
put
yeah, I
together
think I
in a
might have heard of
particular
that
way.
before.
Hmm. inspirations and just from different tabletop RPG sources are used in order to create, just this brand new concept.
Yep, it's like that famous quote from Mark Twain that I do not remember.
So I neglected to mention the authors. The authors are named Leonard Pimentel and Sean Patrick Fannin.
Yeah, shout out to them, by the way.
Yeah.
They're cool. Check out this thing.
And this book is released by, let me see, Mobius Worlds Publishing Incorporated. Mobius Worlds Publishing Incorporated.
Also, shout out to them too.
Mm-hmm. So, originally was led by Sean Patrick Fannin, but now has just become its own entity with multiple different authors within it. QB and I have both been in just the long process of finishing up a couple of books based directly on Brainy the RPG Cat and the lore that we do in One Shots from the Meowing Portal. We're going to finish that up. We're going to release them. I'm hoping that we'll actually have it all done in the fall. But that's up to a lot of factors,
including... I believe we may be on that good road to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, it also depends a lot on me. It's just how much I'm slacking off and how much I'm writing.
Yeah.
So we bring all of this up because we just want to go ahead. We want to drop the thesis for this this tabletop discussion that we're about to have. And that thesis goes as follows. Is that it was Mark Twain that famously said that every idea is secondhand. Is that things within the tabletop RPG sphere inspired the book that we regularly use in order to create our adventures, which we produce for you and are also using in order to create brand new material like the books that we hope to be writing.
That's correct. It mostly applies to me with how much I reference other stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we're going to look at the concepts of referencing juxtaposed with something that I think has been a very controversial topic in tabletop RPGs these days, and that is the concept of an open gaming system.
Oh yeah.
So these discussions usually go into a originally named streamcast that we like to call TTRPG and sometimes Y. We've done 3 episodes so far, including this one, and QB has been here for all of them.
Yep, and I have been commenting on things like how things such as that have been going wrong. Hasbro.
Well, I mean, just talking about the controversies that already exist in Dungeons and Dragons, yep. Most specifically Dungeons and Dragons. Published by Wizards of the Coast, a subsidiary of Hasbro.
Yes, so that is correct.
And there was a time
here just for controversy, right, Brainy?
Yeah, well, there was a time before we started today, and that I was gonna put 60 seconds on the clock, and I was gonna use that as all of the time that QB was gonna use to air out their grievances with Dungeons and Dragons, but unfortunately, after I went through the material for this episode, I know that there's just going to be a lot of other people complaining as well. So, yeah, that's going to be peppered throughout now.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Give me the 60 seconds to rant.
Mm-hmm. And so, pardon me again.
Going at the QB rage a minute.
Devin is saying, well said. I think, with the way my candor has been tonight, I'm going to say, well coughed.
Hey, we all say well in our own different ways.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start this discussion by looking at just a resurgence, an opening of an old wound, you might say, involving Dungeons and Dragons, that recent development entailing the release of the upcoming 4th edition of the Dungeons and Dragons Player's Handbook. I mean, I said 4th
And they've
edition.
retried it again.
It's
huh?
actually, technically, this is the 6th edition, but the way that Wizards
Yeah, they called
is,
it many things like a D&D 1 and like D&D 5.5 or some things like that.
well, I mean, to make a long story short, it's effectively that they want to create a new 6th version of the rulebook, but still retain the majority of material that already exists in Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition.
Mm-hmm.
And so this has created a significant amount of trouble over just the nomenclature and the ability for Wizards in order to move forward with this project.
Alright, so what did they mess up with this time?
Well, I mean, so most recently is that that recent manual, the 6 Player's Handbook, was handed out to various pundits, various individuals on sites like YouTube.
Oh wait, I remember that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I actually know about this. Like, it was given out to YouTubers for them to review, but when it was actually showed on the video, they were immediately given a strike and a copyright claim.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Queen Vampiress, thank you very much for tuning into the chat. It's
Thank
good to see
you.
you again. It's good to see the people who are usually in chat. You know, it's really important because this is a new starting point. So
Yep,
thank
it's
you
always
everybody
nice.
for being here, yeah.
Yep, thank you everyone.
So what we're going to do is we're going to watch a summary. This one is created by Instructaboy. We're going to follow that up by listening to some of the discussion from...
Oh, yes, I know Indestructible as one of the people that was really starting to like leak all the information when the first controversies are starting with Wizards of the Coast.
Mm-hmm. And so we're going to look at them. We're going to look at them. Then we're also going to follow this up by a video by Jordan with a PH, who is one of the most...
titled "What Is Even Happening," which is pretty fair. I mean, you gave them for free advertising, and when they did free advertise, you take it down. You get angry.
Mm-hmm. And so he is a person with a first-hand account of what recently happened with Dungeons and Dragons. And then finally, we're going to look through Dungeons and Discourse. This comes from an individual who is trying to encapsulate the entirety of what Wizards' maneuvers have been since that very first infamous turn that they took when it came to announcing the release of the 6th edition book. Let's not say any more than that.
Yep, this video is titled "The Most Insane Dungeons and Dragons Scandal Got Worse."
All right, so let's
go ahead. I'm looking forward to this train wreck.
Yep, let's start with Destructoboy.
Look upon thy bumper crop of game and see thy choice is plenty. Ladies and gentlemen,
looks like Bazooka Joe here
to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory yet again.
Caucasian Nick
I'm not
Fury.
encouraging people to get their torches and pitchforks ready just quite
Well, I mean,
yet,
other than the fact that Nick Fury was originally
a little
Caucasian.
bit of a fucky-wucky situation.
I mean, yeah, it's like a flashback to them.
Regarding Wizards of the Coast copyright striking a beloved YouTuber and a friend of mine, Jordan, PH is silent, over his flip through of the new player's handbook, also sending several different alerts, I guess takedowns for other creators, in a time where they should be rejoicing over all of the free coverage that essentially every other company in this industry would kill to have. Now, this was shared today about 6 hours ago. This is from Jordan, the PH is silent. So despite fulfilling Wizards D&D's request for the flip through video, I was issued a copyright strike on my channel. 3 strikes terminates your channel. I don't think going over the 2024 PHB is worth losing my channel I've been working on since 2017. As we can see right here, the link, everything, this is for the 2024 PHB flip through on Jordan's channel, and this is a strike issued by C. Reynolds at reynoldslaw.legal. According to Noah Downs, who's my lawyer friend over on Twitch, that's just his handle. Noah has kind of looked into it a little bit and said that this is probably something that was a miscommunication, so we're going to have to see what Wizards of the Coast says as this is coming up. My personal feeling on that is like, well, either way, this is a representative for Wizards of the Coast that is doing this, so like, Whether or not it's a lawyer who is doing this or whatever doesn't really incredibly matter. I'm sure there's been some miscommunication, but still, this should never have happened, especially regarding like this is one of the biggest product releases that Wizards of the Coast will likely ever have. To see them actually basically essentially be getting a lot of praise for this book here on YouTube, a lot of promotion that, like I was saying, a lot of companies in this industry would absolutely kill for. Wizards of the Coast has decided to fumble that bag drastically, and like good old Bob World Builder said, this was the YouTube version of a Pinkerton visit. Yeah, this is absolutely
Ooh.
unacceptable. Watsy, you brought out Angry Bob. Okay?
This is,
no
yeah.
You
reference.
know that you've absolutely
Anger
fucked
as
up if you
portrayed
got
in
Bob
the
World
Twitter
Builder
comments.
bidding on your ass, all right? However, this is not the only case that we have had.
Don't care what universe you're
Watsy
from, that has
doing
got
some
her hurt.
content takedowns or whatever is going on. Honestly, a lot of this is, I think, with people trying to keep up, I guess, agreements and what's going on with the embargo, and maybe censoring their videos in order to make sure that the whatever the content is going to be okay to put up. But this has gotten to a point where basically everybody else in the industry is going to be kind of cool with a content creator doing whatever it was. They're just happy for the coverage, and Wizards of the Coast would instead choose violence. So there's a lot of YouTube videos looking at the brand new player's handbook
Seems to
right
be a
now, and
pattern
some of
for
them
them, huh?
include the YouTuber in question flipping through the new book on screen. A couple of those video creators have been asked by Wizards of the Coast to redact some of the content in their videos, with one finding that their video has been taken down entirely due to copyright claims from the company.
All right, so there's quite a bit to unpack here.
Yeah, I'll say.
Essentially, anybody who has received a has received a review copy of the 6th edition of the Dungeons and Dragons Player Handbook, then took to YouTube to talk
And to
about.
those of you who know how a YouTube is, or even have YouTube yourselves, then you also know just how bad a false copyright strike, or even several, can just completely ruin your life.
Well, we're getting a little bit of ahead of ourselves there.
Well, yeah. So.
Yeah. Okay, so effectively, Wizards of the Coast, a subsidiary of Hasbro, has a legal arm that is serving as overlooking YouTube, which includes bots that effectively sweep YouTube for any of their potential content being used. And they had already, in the video they had mentioned the specific name of the legal team that was responsible for that. The issue is that people like Jordan with a PH, who we're going to be hearing more from later, he put a review up, but then received a copyright strike because the bots and the sweeping of YouTube is still in effect, even though he personally received a review copy and was asked to review it. So my understanding is that this situation is already completed. That Jordan with the PH, he already had his copyright strike removed, but in the same vein that happened, a lot of other smaller VTubers got hit with the exact same strike, even though they received review copies as well.
Yeah, and I agree with this Indestructible here. Like, even if this was like an honest mistake, even if there wasn't anything malicious happening here, this is still an incredibly bad look.
Absolutely.
It's like they've already done so much actually malicious stuff that they can't even afford to step on a single bit of eggshell here.
Well, it was mentioned, the completely and total unrelated controversy with a group of Pinkertons who had visited an individual who was reviewing a Magic the Gathering card set.
Yep, apparently those cards had accidentally been sent when they weren't even supposed to be announced yet, and Wizards of the Coast got so upset at this that they sent like violent hitmen, Pinkertons, to their doorstep to, terrorize his family and shake them down for the cards.
Yeah, but that is neither here nor there. I mean,
neither
it's a part of
the completely unrelated.
Yeah, but nevertheless, a result of the venomous underbelly of what has been a part of Dungeons and Dragons discussion for the past couple of for the past couple of years. And we're going to get
Yeah, and it
more into
hasn't even
that in
been
like
that
the,
many years. It's all been happening so quickly.
and we'll be going over the history of that as well. But let's go ahead and let's finish this video.
It appears to be the folks who are flipping through the whole book on screen who are running into the issue, which it seems is based on piracy
WotC
concerns.
really
Jordan
can't
posted
afford this
on
bad
Twitter that
PR. It's a
despite
really
fulfilling
terrible
WotC's request
look.
for the flip-through video,
Secured us,
I was
scary
issued a
stuff.
copyright strike on my channel.
It's
Three
like they
strikes,
just
termination
keep
channel, we
stepping
read that
on to
earlier.
like the
Continues
millions of
on, I'm pretty upset that none of this was said up front when notified. I did comply with the requirements, and I see other creators still have their videos up. Videos that are not unlike mine. Covering WotC is not worth losing my channel. Meanwhile, please subscribe to my D&D free channel, The Jocular Junction, where I'll most likely be making the majority of my TTRPG videos. Mike Shea, aka Sly Flourish, also posted a walkthrough of the Player's Handbook. While he didn't receive a copyright takedown action after an email from WotC, he has blurred out all the page images. Note, I blurred out pictures of the book after Hasbro sent me an email saying they are worried people would take screenshots of the book and build their own. Yes, it's complete bullshit. WotC, this is complete bullshit. Okay? It's the only reason
Yeah, I
people will do
agree.
this
This
is because you
is
make your game inaccessible. All right?
yeah.
Honestly,
What?
also, by the way, get over yourselves, Wizards of the Coast. People will probably do this, but like, who fucking cares? They're playing your game. Okay? They're playing your game, checking it out. Whenever it's actually available, they will most likely buy it. The people that are desperate enough to do this right here are the people who are most likely going to buy it. You all are completely out of touch with your customer base. This is absolutely fucking insane. All right? But we almost do our part to ensure $4 billion companies maximize shareholder value. Look at how ridiculous this looks. Look at this. This guy is over here, like, this is one of the bigger names in the TTRPG industry, with Mike Shea over here trying to just do a video covering the new player's handbook. And look at what he has to do, because WotC doesn't understand the core customer base. They don't know how to make their product accessible. This is ridiculous. This is absolutely insane. Popular YouTuber D&D Shorts had a video entitled 100% walkthrough of the new player's handbook in D&D. That video is no longer available. However, his full spoilers review is still available online. So no matter what really the course of the NDA is, here's what I'm saying. It doesn't matter whether these people did or did not violate this thing. The problem is that Wizards of the Coast is being overly litigious with this. They are absolutely overstepping their boundaries and like copyright striking? Jordan? Really? Like, do you all not know that Jordan is like one of the most liked guys in the D&D YouTube architecture? Like, come the fuck on. Why would you do this to 100,000 sub plus channel?
All right. Well, I think maybe this is a good lead in. Let's go ahead. Let's head over to the next video. This is straight from the
And
horse's
also
mouth.
like what Indestructible Voice says is pretty right. It is really foolish to like, hey, could go after like someone who generally has a big audience and lots of people who like him.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah, it's like if you crush one bug, there's probably like 17 trillion more lurking somewhere in the shadows.
Mm-hmm. And as I've said in previous episodes of this, you know, it's not that we're trying to put too much emphasis on previous episodes because you know we're starting over with this episode.
Yep, we're doing a soft reset of the channel, we'll say.
Yeah, but you know, in previous episodes, I've said that you know the entire basis of the tabletop RPG industry is quite literally based on people making their own copies.
Yep. If anything, D&D is dependent on the fans.
I mean, you know, people are quite apt to say that tabletop RPGs can only be played with a paper and pencil. TTRPG manuals used to pretty consistently be copied using the Xerox method, printed in very monochromatic black and white, you know, strictly for the purpose that other people will be able to pass them on to their friends, and that by itself was its own form of advertising.
Yes, exactly. In fact, the open game license that we discussed earlier, it was created so that, well, this sort of thing, like, okay, we won't copyright strike you for using our stuff. Just like do what you want, have fun.
Oh, the open game license. It's an enormous can of worms, and you know I'm more than happy to open it during this stream. But first, let's go ahead.
I'm gonna help you open that thing.
Mm-hmm. So here we are, straight from the horse's mouth. This is Jordan with a PH, and this is his own assessment of what happened with the copyright strike.
Hey everyone, big milestone for the channel, my very first controversy, scandal, YouTube drama bundle. Hello everybody, Jordan here, the PH is silent. As we're talking about this, I want to talk about the strike on my channel and why it's removed and why I'm not angry and all that other stuff. I will be referencing a bunch of notes that I wrote on this side, so if my eyes dart over there, that is why. But I'm sure most of you have already heard, here's a quick recap. Wizards of the Coast's lawyers issued a copyright strike on my channel for flipping through the 2024 D&D Player's Handbook. That strike has been redacted. It's gone, like it never happened, and I'm very happy and thankful for this. And on my side, I have removed the flip through video, and I want to talk about my reasons for why I removed it, why I think the strike happened, and also address a few responses from subscribers.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
So early, Wizards of the Coast
The
reached out to
Watsy
me saying, hey, do
controversies
you
in a
want
nutshell.
access to the 2024 Player's Handbook?
Just boy, that
under a
escalated
couple
quickly.
of stipulations. You might have already heard this before, but stipulation 1, you got to sign an NDA. And number 2, if you're not planning on making PHB 2024 content, maybe don't request access. Like, don't ask for a book because they're in like limited number and they're not giving this out to anyone.
Don't give out a book and then ask people for a non-disclosure agreement afterwards.
I don't cover like builds on the best
You
warlock.
would think they would be
like
happy that people are talking
about
to
making
them and not
games
mentioning
more
controversies.
inspiring for game masters. So I said, no, thank you, but thank you for keeping me in mind. That's awesome. Keep up the good work. Many, many weeks later, as we get closer to August 1st, I got an email that says, hey, we're going to send you a Player's Handbook 2024, no strings attached. Thank you for being awesome. And I said, that's really cool. Thank you. Here's my address. And after it was shipped, I received an email that I should be expecting it. And they specifically said in the email from the D&D Creator Relations team, please refrain from posting content from inside the book until our embargo lifts after August 1st, 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Great. So August 1st rolls around. I saw videos popping up from various creators. I saw Nerd Immersion posts and stuff. I saw D&D Shorts posts and stuff. I saw other things. And I said, you know what I should do? Let's just do a live stream. Now, I've done these live streams in the past. I don't do them often, but sometimes when a new book comes out and I'm excited for it, I like to flip through it and we just chat with people and we go about the book. And I was really treating it like that. So doing a flip through of the 2024 PHB where there's the embargo is lifted, I'm allowed to talk about the book. It seemed like a no-brainer. So August 1st, I did the live stream. It was fun. And then Saturday morning, I received an email from the D&D creators team asking that I blur some of my pages. This was not really malicious. It just felt like it was a miscommunication and that now that the books were out and they realized that a lot of people would be making more content than they anticipated, they wanted to prevent certain pages from getting displayed. And if I had already made content, to please go back and like blur some of the pages. And I said, okay, I agree. I wasn't really upset that this happened. I mean, it's not killer to my channel. It's not killer to the things that I want to make. And ultimately, I'm like, I don't really care because the book will be out in a couple months anyway. So I delisted my video so that people couldn't watch it. And then I blurred 80% of the screen. And you could probably see here on the screen, this is what it looked like after I had finished doing the copyright blurring. I also saw that there were other people that had blurred their stuff. Specifically, Sly Flourish seemed to have blurred a bunch of his flip through. Alpha Stream blurred a bunch of his flip through. And so it just makes sense. So after you apply the blurring, I waited until YouTube finished processing the video so that I knew that if I put it out there again, it would be blurred for anybody who was watching the video. I double checked, was blurred, we're good to go. I put the video back out there. And then the morning after that, I woke up and there was a copyright strike on my channel. So if you do business related things on YouTube, or if you're just posting a lot and making a lot of videos on YouTube, you probably understand the severity of this. I had a few people on Reddit and Twitter that were saying that I was overreacting and that this happens all the time. But I really want to stress that if you do YouTube stuff, YouTube takes copyright very, very seriously, and YouTube would not be able to be a viable platform if companies can't protect their intellectual property, because YouTube itself will get sued into non-existence. Thus, YouTube has created tools and features that heavily favor business IP holders over creators. And that is intentional because they want to make the person that has the larger pocketbook happy over the person that's making a video that gets like 5,000 views. So let's talk about copyright and how that relates to YouTube.
Okay,
So copyright, not really.
Pause right
important.
here because
we just chat with.
We are going to be doing our own copyright overview from that point, but
Yeah, I better hope you don't get a visit from Pinkerton by showing this image.
well, at any rate, I believe that, what's going on here is a situation where one hand doesn't know what the other is doing. Is that they have one group that is sweeping YouTube for potential copyright violations. They have another group who is making agreements with individuals in order to actually do the book review. And that second group also created the stipulation that no pages of the actual book should be shown on any YouTube material. So
Yeah, but yet it sounds like Jordan here like followed all the rules. He waited until the embargo was supposedly lifted. When he was asked if he could blur some of the pages, he obliged to blur them out. Oh, and yet copyright strike.
mm-hmm. I mean, so just the potential of there being a copyright strike is very damaging to a person who has a small YouTube channel, who has an independently
Yeah, this could
run.
be incredibly threatening to what could be like the main source of your money.
Mm-hmm. But the hardest thing about this is knowing that there were perimeters, the individual followed the perimeters, and yet this still happened because there's probably a completely different group handling the actual YouTube material from a group that is actually passing that material out to potential
Yeah, and it seems
marketers.
to me like whoever is making the deals at these creators doesn't even bother to go let the people who are like checking for copyright strikes know.
Okay, so I'm reading this in chat from OS Devon. I mean, better safe than sorry. Relieved to hear that the strikes were withdrawn. It does seriously sound like a misstep, maybe an overreaction, rather than anything intended to bully, but it's still very frustrating.
Yeah, like Indestructible said, even if this was like honest mistake, no malicious intent, like it's still a bad look for them. They've already done most of the things in the book that makes a company like something you see like an exaggerated cartoon. They can't really afford anything else that makes them look even worse.
Mm-hmm. So we're only just fitting into the first few inches of the rabbit hole when it comes to how modern game licensing works.
Yeah, we're about up to our ankles right now.
Mm-hmm. So now we're going to be hearing a summary of a good amount of this material, and it comes from Dungeons and Discourse. And so this is effectively the video that is going to tie the current YouTube controversy with issues that Wizards of the Coast, a subsidiary of Hasbro, has had ever since they had first announced the release of the 6th edition of the book.
And when everything first started going downhill.
Okay, so we have to talk about the absolutely insane Dungeons & Dragons news that just came out of Hasbro. Because I'm not exaggerating when I say that this month, Hasbro Wizards have genuinely gone further than I ever thought possible. In fact, they've just admitted something that even in my wildest nightmares, and I'm including the ones that I always get after watching Legend, no, Tom Cruise, don't make me touch the unicorn's horn. I know what happens. I could never have fathomed this taking place, but Hasbro Wizards, they did it. So yeah, strap in, because I don't think you're gonna believe this either. Now, okay, I know what you're thinking, and I can't admit it. Sometimes I can be a little bit cynical about Hasbro Wizards these days. At least as cynical
I'll
about
join the
them
club.
as I am about the effectiveness of lint rollers. I mean, come on. They're clearly designed to leave a sticky mess all over your clothes, meaning that the more lint rollers that you use, the more lint gets stuck to your clothes. And then you have to buy more lint rollers. Think about it, people. Oh, and 9/11. But not even I had on my bingo card that they go as far as they just did. See, if you watched my last video, well done you. How come you're not subscribed yet? Subscribe below. Yeah, I'm that needy ex-girlfriend that requires validation, or else I'll lie and tell everyone that you have a third nipple. Then you'd know that at Gen Con this month, Hasbro finally showed off the new Dungeons & Dragons virtual tabletop system, and there's been a ton of frightened speculation about this virtual system from the community, especially after extremely worrying statements were made by executives over at Hasbro, owner and occupier of Dungeons & Dragons. You know, they've been saying some wacky things like how the D&D brand, quote, isn't being monetized enough, and that Hasbro must, quote, unlock the type of recurrent spending that you see in digital games. And of course, who could forget, quote, to discipline ourselves, we must first discipline our nation. One people, one nation, one... Oh, wait, no, that was Mussolini. Got my pages mixed up again. Yeah, people are worried
Okay,
that
it's
the new
pretty
focus
similar.
from Hasbro is going to be on their upcoming D&D digital tabletop program, the one that's designed to allow people to play D&D virtually, and that their focus for D&D going forward is going to be all in on digital play. There's been videos and articles all about it, and I get that worry. Hasbro really seem like they're going to turn Dungeons & Dragons into a mobile game hellscape, filled with all that recurrent spending that you get in digital games, like the already existing Hasbro-owned Monopoly game. Something that, if we're honest, is probably a bit of a blueprint for them. What Hasbro don't want, though, is another OGL scandal, nor all those fears in the community to blow up and prevent adoption of the new digital system. So they made a decision. After showing off the virtual tabletop in action for the first time at Gen Con, they actually began providing concrete details of what this new system looks like, what the future holds, and how Dungeons & Dragons will be changing forever in a series of interviews, presumably in a bid to reassure the D&D and RPG community that things aren't about to get a whole lot worse. Unfortunately, in practice, Hasbro have been about as reassuring as Bill Cosby insisting that he didn't touch your Coca-Cola, because actually, in giving us details about this new
Shots
system,
fired
Hasbro
with that
were
one.
forced to admit some
all
terrifying
things, eh?
revelations about what the D&D community can look forward to, and how, yeah, this whole digital tabletop thing, it's going to be changing how we all play Dungeons & Dragons going forward. But before we can talk about the most
changes in-
insane
it's not gonna be
revelations
played
that
at
came
all.
out of these interviews, I first want to talk about another one that Chris Cow did with Rascal News on the same weekend. Because even this interview had some details that were pretty terrifying, like finding out that your parents' divorce isn't going ahead. So to fix that, you're going to have to do whatever the opposite of a parent's trap is. I think that might be staging their deaths to look like a murder-suicide. Now, to be
Okay,
fair to
she
Chris
makes
Cow, he was
similes.
kind
That's her
of rude in
thing.
giving this interview at all. Because,
really
let's
fun.
be honest, he's pretty much the Dungeons & Dragons Jeffrey Epstein. He has definitely been villainized in the press and in whatever the hell YouTube is. Videos on the internet, but not porn? So yeah, bit confusing there. I suppose YouTube is the news equivalent of methamphetamine. I mean, you have to be on meth to release the same image 17 times in a row over the course of a few months. But hey, YouTube keeps telling me to do it or else they'll kill my kids. So I keep taking meth and putting up that same image. And I don't even have kids. Just a lot of meth. I really have to stop admitting to crimes in these videos. Anyway, what I mean by that Epstein
Yeah,
comment
I was
is that
gonna-
Chris Cow is
I was
definitely
gonna go
the
there
number
next.
one recipient of the 10 minutes of hate in the D&D community. And some would argue for good reason. See, for context, during the OGL scandal, yeah, that one, a bunch of leaks came out of Wizards of the Coast, many of which personally named Chris Cow as the one spearheading all those obviously evil pro-Sauron positions. Positions like make it worse, make it digital, and charge more money. He's basically Wormtongue, but with way less sex appeal. On top of that, there has also been some
I beg
wild
your pardon?
allegations that he has been bullying employees too.
Yeah,
explaining
I
some
don't
of
think
those
that was
very
Wormtongue. That
nasty
was
Glassdoor reviews
still
for
from
Hasbro.
Lord of the
and
Rings.
making him a bit more like Denethor, I guess. But again, with way less sex appeal.
Unless
But I
that
like to
character's
think
named
that I have
Wormtongue
a
as well.
type. Anyway, in this interview, we learned a whole lot because you know your D&D character sheet? Yeah, that one. Well, throw it in the bin. It's trash. Goodbye. Who needs a paper character sheet when you have Sigil, the digital dream? So Sigil is the code name of the new virtual tabletop, but it's basically the name that they're going with. So Sigil is Dungeons and Dragons Online, named after, of course, the city at the heart of the multiverse. Yep, nothing to read into there. And it's clear from this interview with Chris that Sigil is intended to replace the traditional character sheet, pretty much as an extension of the D&D Beyond platform. Chris Cal, by the way, is like the head of this new program, and he's saying the playtesting of it matches how groups like Critical Role and Dimension 20 play, basically using the D&D VTT as a virtual battle map with the digital minis replacing physical ones, but also relying on the program to keep track of all the character sheet stuff. I guess then, in that context, it now makes sense that there's no copy of the player character sheet in the new Player's Handbook 2024. Awesome, yeah. But hey, don't worry, if you want a physical copy, you can always buy the physical character sheets from Hasbro for like $20. Thanks for your beneficence, Hasbro. But in this interview, he also throws
I can't
out
imagine
that
it being
video
too
game
different
will
from the
probably
5th
play
edition, so...
exclusively with Sigil, not
Yeah,
the
just-
physical version of D&D,
just putting a
which
price tag on
is pretty
it.
telling. See, personally, I think that the existence of
Who is
Sigil
in
as
this
a
whole
mere
thing?
alternative to
Ebenezer?
miniatures and maps, or physical ones at least, I don't think that that is necessarily bad. And personally, in my opinion, if that makes the game easier to play for people, that's cool. But my worry is, if Hasbro's goal is to target video gamers, then the big question becomes, is D&D going to be monetized like a modern video game? That would
All right, so that's a good stopping point right there. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, you know, I think as this video is a little bit more conjectural than what we saw for a fact in the previous two videos. So go ahead and
Yes,
take
and-
that with a grain of salt. But obviously, you know, the concern, you know, coming from Hasbro's current treatment of the Wizards of the Coast IP, juxtaposed with the concern is of the individuals who are actually playing tabletop games currently, is that Hasbro is working in order to make Dungeons and Dragons the most self-contained playing experience when it possibly can, and monetize players every step of the way. This is a big
the
contradiction.
whole D&D is under monetized thing is what started all the controversies in the first place.
Mm-hmm. And also, you know, I think what was actually previously said by Indestructible Boy is that Dungeons and Dragons, you know, is something that is effectively just supplied by the user. You get the tools in order to play the game on the tabletop, but that tool is really effectively just an instruction manual, and you would follow that up by making a majority of the material that is going to be in your Dungeons and Dragons game on paper.
Yeah, there's many different things that you can kind of get that aren't like, you know, Hasbro brain, and like you can like write your own character sheets, make your own maps, like you can order your own minis from other creators online if you really want that. Heck, you have some dice and you're pretty much ready to play.
Yeah.
Maybe a DM screen too, but still.
Yeah. I think, you know, to that point, individuals are really just kind of trying to bridge the generation gap when it comes to old school and modern tabletop gaming. Hasbro's
Yeah,
plan
that's shown
thus
to be
far...
a pretty bad idea for most companies that attempt to do that.
Well, Hasbro's plan thus far has been, you know, to move everything to a specific digital platform. And, you know, just the installation base of that, whatever that digital platform is going to dictate what the efficacy of Hasbro's plans with Dungeons & Dragons are going to be from that point forward. But, you know, once again, going back to the initial point, people are still going to play Dungeons & Dragons. They're just going to use older manuals. They're going to...
Yeah, either that or they'll just move to different systems like Powers and Paragons and Pathfinder and literally, like, I don't know, dozens, hundreds, maybe thousands of other systems.
And we're going to show that element in just a moment. But essentially, um, people, are still going to continue to just play supported by the things that have already been shown themselves to be more user friendly than what is currently being proposed by Hasbro.
Yeah,
I think most
exactly.
notably, when it comes to the concept of a digital platform, there already exists other digital platforms. And,
Yeah, like I for one play many different kinds of MMOs that provide a far more fun and all sorts of different things.
mhm,
And may add some of the ones that I played look way better than what they showed there.
but short of that, when it comes to virtual tabletops, we have Roll20, we have Tabletop
Yep, there's
Simulator.
Roll20. There's all different sorts of like online
Mhm,
games, whether they be like really table full of top or not. It's a heck, they might not even be really be based on like anything like that, but they would still be like less spiteful and way more user friendly than this.
And also, when we play our game, we have a tendency to use Roll20 with custom maps that are usually created by one or two programs that I had downloaded off of Steam.
Yes, indeed.
So, the creation of new
And I often
material.
use like a little online program that lets me like make little digital minis of
Mhm.
random things that I want to make.
Yeah. So when the rubber hits the road, it's this situation where people are already creating, and people are already creating on a scale vaster than what Dungeons and Dragons can do when it comes to uh, creating licensure for their own material. Which brings us to the concept of open gaming. Next few pages are
Oh
going to be
boy,
from
now we
Wikipedia.
were like up to our knees, and now we're just gonna dive face first into it.
I mean, this is what we do, is that we are
It's
here
what
in
we
order
do.
to dig up the answers to all of these questions and provide a
We answer the
view of
TTRPG and sometimes why of these sorts of situations.
precisely. So, the open gaming movement, this is the beginning of the open gaming movement. Within the
Yep, the
tabletop role playing,
start.
yeah. So, open gaming, this is, yeah, we're providing a definition. Open gaming is a movement within tabletop role-playing industry with superficial similarities to the open source software movement. The key aspect is that copyright holders license their works under public copyright licenses that permit others to make copies or create derivative works of that game. A number of role-playing game publishers have joined the open gaming movement, largely as a result of the original system reference document by Wizards of the Coast, which consisted of the core rules of Dungeons & Dragons 3rd Edition. Open gaming has been popular among small press role-playing game and supplement authors. And so this is something that is key to remember, is that the first
Yes,
ever
what
open
the
game... I'm sorry?
I was gonna explain some things about this.
Mhm.
Is
Okay, go ahead.
so like the real thing, what this open copyright thing even means is that you know how like a lot of popular or like fictional characters and other things have a copyright, right, which means you can't use them until a certain time and then that copyright expires. Whereas, well, this is pretty much the opposite of that. That that or and you could just use it
hmm
like we could care less. It's like go ahead, have fun. We
hmm
don't care.
But what is really significant about this situation is that it actually originated with Dungeons and Dragons, and more importantly, it
Yeah, pretty much this
originated.
sort of concept was there with the D&D since the start, the very start.
Mhm. I mean, so this is probably something that might not show up in the articles that we're about to read, but effectively, um, Dungeons and Dragons Third Edition, version 3.0, was released by its original parent company, TSR. I would say approximately um, around 2000 and 2001. I might be getting that date wrong. But it contained a clause that said, that effectively said, we're going to start to hammer down on copyrights in order to protect our intellectual property. But due to that occurrence, very few of the 3.0 books actually sold. People were just refusing to make purchases of them because they knew that they would be beholden to the use of copyrighted material as applied to them by TSR. In response to that, is that TSR was forced to sell the Dungeons and Dragons brand to Wizards of the Coast. And Wizards of the Coast, their first order of business was to create the very first OGL in order to make sure that their released version, Dungeons and Dragons 3.5, was not going to fail based on the attempt to put more copyrighted material directly into the hands of the copyright holder. But of course, this was also a version of Wizards of the Coast that was not owned by a larger parent company like Hasbro. And it's really just the fact that Hasbro has intervened in a lot of this is the reason why OGL has become a topic again.
Yep, and that pretty much started by the first controversy that Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast have initiated, which was the fact that they would attempt to sneakily dismantle their OGL and be able to pretty much just rob creators of their money anytime they use their product.
Mm-hmm. You know, we play Dungeons and Dragons. We are effectively rules lawyers, and therefore we are able to read a multi-page document about how these documentation is actually supposed to work. And then a lot of people go onto YouTube and then make videos about that.
Okay. Yep, we research into these things.
Okay, so going very quickly into the history here, they talk about the legal notice for the Fudge system, which Fudge standing, of course, for Freeform Universal Donated Game Engine, which never was an official book engine, but was a D6 system that was just used by multiple independently published games. As Devin in chat says, you're questioning the validity of my role. I'll have you know. Well, yeah, that's just him playing rules lawyer in the chat.
Yeah, we're all a gaggle of rules lawyers here.
Mm-hmm. And so outsource role-playing, the phrase outsource role-playing was used as early as 1999 by the Dominion Rules role-playing system, the license of which permitted supplementary material to be written for its rules. Another open system was the Circe role-playing system published by the WorldForge project under the GNU Free Documentation license, which is also going to come into play in a moment. So
yep, keep an eye on that too. It will also be important.
Yes. So going to the open game license, this is specifically the open game license that is involved, was created by Wizards of the Coast for the purpose of using in Dungeons and Dragons.
Yep, that is correct. This one was following D&D 3, right?
Mm-hmm. The OGL states that in consideration for agreeing to use this license, the contributors grant you a perpetual worldwide royalty-free non-exclusive license with the exact terms of this license to use the open game content, the game mechanic, the OGL defines two forms of content. First is the open game content, the game mechanic, and includes the methods, procedures, processes, and routines to the extent such content does not embody the product identity and is an enhancement over the prior art, and any additional content clearly defined as open game content by the contributor. This effectively means that the publishers are capable of maintaining a certain amount of very specific product identity concepts, but is otherwise allowing the basic play of the license, any material that is universally utilized, such as the existence of characters like dwarves, elves, and halflings, and
you can't really put copyright on the word orc since it's so widely used.
Well, that is to say, is that the person who had originally coined the term orc was J.R.R. Tolkien, and therefore is not something that can be owned by a specific group, unless that group was
That's right.
potentially the family of J.R.R. Tolkien.
And even so, it would probably refer to like the sorts of orcs that he used in his book.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the second pillar of content, product identity, product and product name, line names, logos, identifying marks, including trade dress, artifacts, creature characters, stories, storylines, plots, thematic element, dialogue, incidents, language, artwork, symbols, designs, depictions, likenesses, and formats. This is all of the material that is created originally for the purpose of publishing in a single book.
Exactly.
So going back into
And the
history.
history involving third edition and then into fourth edition, and what I'm assuming fifth edition.
So the OGL was originally published by Wizards of the Coast in 2000 to use portions of the third edition of Dungeons and Dragons, thus allowing third-party publishers to produce compatible material. So this was roughly about 2000. I did get that part right. Yay for me.
Hooray.
So this move was spearheaded by Ryan Dancey, and it was modeled on the various open source licenses used in the software industry. So this was roughly around the beginning of what we call the 2.0 movement of the internet.
Yep.
They had an understanding
like in
that,
the old days.
And so they had an understanding that things, that they might have previously published would have ended up in large open source materials such as wikis, just anything that they could use to aggregate a significant amount of content. I think that we kind of fall into a problem these days because a lot of people are actually creating original content and then posting it in venues such as Twitch and YouTube and TikTok. Because in those situations, there really does have to be a bleeding edge between anything that is exclusively owned by the copyright holder and anything that is potentially created by a fan.
Yeah, plus if you actually do like try to stop like one person from doing this, that's ultimately a pointless battle since someone else can just like repost what the first person posted and then again and again and again. So it would pretty much be like a fighting ghosts and losing.
So this is Dancey's statement on the original OGL. I think there's a very strong business case that can be made for the idea of embracing the ideas at the heart of the open source movement and finding a place for them in gaming. One of my fundamental arguments is that pursuing the open gaming concept, Wizards can establish a clear policy on what it will and will not allow people to do with its copyrighted materials. Just that alone should spur a huge surge in independent content creation. So, it's pretty interesting to note at this point, this version of Wizards was, very significantly wanted to have other material based on Dungeons and Dragons to be published independently.
Yeah, it seems to be like the reason the open game license was made, is actually pretty ironic considering why it's being dismayed. It was being controversial today.
So, unfortunately, after after Dancey's initial assessment of all of this, cracks immediately began to form with Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition. Wizards of the Coast transitioned to a more restrictive royalty-free license called the Game System License, which is available for third-party developers to publish products compatible with 4th edition. The GSL is incompatible with the previous OGL. However, by its own terms, the OGL is perpetual and remained in widespread use. So, this kind of denotes what the difference is whenever one of these open game licenses are exchanged from one generation or another. Effectively, what is currently what the legal defensible position is for all of this is that game system licenses are only valid when it comes to whatever edition of the game was previously released.
Let's
And so
see.
this resulted in, well, that controversy that we had already heard about in the previous video, where an attempt to create a 6th edition of Dungeons and Dragons resulted in the inability of them to willfully continue with the 5th edition open game license.
I still think it was just something flat out malicious.
So they released this under the banner of 1D&D, which is a marketing term that I think has really just effectively been scrubbed from D&D material from this point forward because of its critical reception from the fans.
Yeah.
Eventually, we are going to get the 6th edition of the manual, but it's not going to say 1D&D on it. That's effectively what's happening with that.
Pretty much.
Following concerns raised by third-party Dungeons & Dragons creators on potential changes to the open game license, in December 2022, Wizards of the Coast released additional details on the proposed OGL 1.1, which would have gone into effect in 2023. It would have clarified that it only applies to, quote, printed media or static electronic files like EPUBs or PDFs, and only recovers material created for use or as in TTRPGs. OGL would not cover content sites such as video games or virtual tabletops. Content creators using OGL 1.1 would have been required to put an official OGL badge on their products. Revenue related to OGL content would have been reported to Wizards of the Coast. If that revenue exceeds $50,000 annually, creators who had made at least $750,000 in income annually would be required to pay a royalty starting in 2024. So this is effectively, Wizards putting their hand in the cookie jar. Is that knowing that any company actually might become highly successful as a result of creating tabletop RPG content, if that content exceeded $750,000, they would need to pay a royalty to Wizards of the Coast.
Yep. It seems that like pretty much every single controversy they've done, like in my opinion, from what I've seen, was like entirely fueled by greed. Like with this, they're trying to take money from creators, saving money. All sorts of things like involving like things of materials that have to do with money.
So, following an apology issued by Wizards of the Coast, the company released a new draft titled OGL 1.2 for public comment on January 19th. It would have put some of the Dungeons & Dragons mechanics under a Creative Commons license, while other material would have been covered by OGL 1.2. For example, specific classes, spells, and monsters would have fallen under the proposed OGL 1.2, while alignment equipment, feats, the use of ability scores, combat rules, how spellcasting works, how monster stat blocks works, and conditions will have been covered under Creative Commons Attribution 4.0 International. So, the response was essentially, we're going to take just a big chunk of the 5.0 manual, and we're just going to publish it under Creative Commons license. And this, in a way, is more of a goodwill gesture than it would be if they had rewritten the open game license. For the specific reason that from this point forward, any material that was previously published in 5.0 is now available under Creative Commons, which means, and absolutely anybody is capable of publishing based on the material that is in that Creative Commons license. But what we have to, keep in the back of our minds here is that this isn't an OGL for any potential 6th edition of Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, you're right.
It is really just cementing all of the play mechanics in 5.0 for independent writers and creators to use. I think something that is also pretty notable about all of this is that there's no mention of a 6th edition in the way that Dungeons and Dragons manuals have been published in the past. They say that they're going to be releasing a revised player's handbook, and that's going to be coming out this coming fall. But they're saying that, they are hoping that it's still going to be largely backwards compatible with any manual that was released under 5.0.
Yeah.
They're trying to create a sense of universality with the Dungeons and Dragons concept, and that's initially what 1D&D meant. But because of all of the debacle that had happened while they had made the announcement, we're probably never going to hear the term 1D&D attached to anything anymore. Devin says, "Oh well, so it's a rebrand by any other name." Effectively, yeah, it is.
Pretty much.
And it should be treated as
pretty much
such.
like just polishing off of the last stuff, making it look a bit like, just a bit more polished, and then putting it back out there again.
Mm-hmm. And well, what's the best way that I can put this? I think the general fan response to all of this is that, well, okay, that's all good to know. It's interesting to see how they have a tendency to include the fans in decisions that they're going to make from this point forward. But given what had happened
that
with
way
Jordan,
right until the truth came out and how they really felt about the consumers and fans was actually revealed.
So, simply the fact that there is still an embargo on the 6th edition of the book, even though several fans have already reviewed it, and were therefore asked to blur the material that they had. Not really extending the olive branch of Universal Gaming.
Yeah, if anything, it was handing out a hand grenade.
Mm-hmm. So, in response to a lot of what was going on with Dungeons & Dragons, a lot of other tabletop RPG publishers
One of the most notable of these was the Orc license, so making their own version of an OGO.
Yeah. So, the Orc license effectively creates a universal game engine for a myriad of books published by organizations such as Kobold Press, Savage Worlds, which we had previously mentioned.
Yep, guys behind Pathfinder, which we might have also mentioned.
Mm-hmm. So this is just a great big fat boring legal document. So I'm just gonna try to see if I can.
Yeah, this sort of thing, legitimately felt like a war of pens here with multiple slogans like I'd rather be an orc than a wizard.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So this feels like this should be covered in history books in the future.
Mm-hmm. So this is the significant part of it right here. The Orc license is a product license located at the Library of Congress at Texas, serial number 3-307-067, and available online at various locations. A state attribution is a statement based on reasonable good faith efforts that identifies each licensor or creator of the licensed material you used and any others to receive attribution. Pardon me. Including all upstream licensors of licensed material upon which your adapted licensed material is based or derived from. Worded in any accurate and reasonable manner so requested by such parties. Such credit may be named anonymous or a reasonable pseudonym. For the avoidance of doubt, both licensor and all parties similarly credited on our license attributions should be included in your attribution notice, unless otherwise reasonably indicated by some parties. So, effectively what they're doing is they are seeking credit. They, in a situation that any potential crossover might exist between characters from one book to another, is to make sure that those things are properly cited.
Yeah, so pretty much the thing would be, like, as long as you like give a credit to whoever made the specific thing that you're using, and then you'll be fine.
Hmm. And so, on the other side of the coin, when it comes to specific copyrighted material, a statement based on reasonable good faith effort that identifies the elements of your reserve material, if any, contained in the derivative work in which you have the licensed material for avoidance of doubt. Such designation neither limits your rights in your reserve material nor limits any downstream license's use of the adapted licensed material. In the event of a conflict, your designation of reserve material and the definition of licensed material, the definition shall control. Which means is that just directly permits any company that feels as though there is something directly copied from one of their books, still has the ability in order to create an inquiry based on that. So, like I said, is that right now is that we're walking the tightrope between what is potentially a copyrighted material and what is something that can be permitted for use in an open source document such as a tabletop RPG, or when it comes to game mechanics, whether or not game mechanics are copyrightable. And
I do not think they could. I don't think so.
well, I mean, they are in very, I think probably very specific situations.
And you can't really like copyright like the word dragons,
Mhm.
like I said earlier with the work.
large license companies like Paizo, and the creators, everybody who actually signed on the dotted line when it comes to the Orc license, still use very unique gameplay mechanics, and those are the mechanics that set them as apart as an individual company.
This is incredibly confusing.
But well, that's legal,
Yep, but hey, we do it for all the people who watch things like this.
So this is this is what's called a sample notice. This is effectively the way that you're supposed to put in order any kind of inquiry regarding the use of the Orc notice. This product is licensed at the Library of Congress at the same serial number. This product is based on the following licensed material: title, list the title of work, the copyright notice, the author credit information, the type of additional work, the copyright notice, and the author credit information. Just create a list of every single individual derivative work that you might have potentially used licensed material from. If you use our licensed material in your own published works, please credit us as follows with the title of the work, the copyright notice, and your author credit information. Reserved material elements in this product include, but may not be limited to, the Skeleton Crew, the Horrible Nation of Funeralia, the Order of Ossuaries and Edgelords. These are just examples of specific concepts that have been written out of one individual's variation of the Orc notice. And then, listing expressly designated licensed material. The following elements are owned by the licensor, the person writing the new book, and would otherwise constitute reserved material and are hereby designated as licensed material. So that's where the person who is writing the book can protect themselves and say that there is this amount of material that I would consider to be a violation of the Orc license in my part.
All right. So it's so they can like have copyright over something like very specific, right? All right.
And so,
all right, good. That's what I thought.
Yeah, and effectively that's the way the ball bounces. Is that the creation of specific types of material in the modern day tabletop RPG sphere are probably what enjoin people to make an agreement in order to have some form of open game license. I think what immediately comes to mind, I think what comes to mind in general when it comes to tabletop RPG are streaming shows like Critical Role, and there's some new more popular ones, but will always be a critter.
Yep.
you know. But that's effectively, Critical Role was some people that were pretty deeply ensconced in the open game license controversy, because they
Yeah,
were
I
in a
heard that they.
situation where, well, they were in a situation where they created original characters. They had those original characters licensed in books that were published by Wizards of the Coast, but then they also wanted to retain their own forms of copyright. They were also going to be one of the previously mentioned entities that made more than $350,000 on the content that they were creating, and therefore would have needed to pay a royalty to Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, I heard that they pretty much left Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro after all that.
Mm-hmm. OS Devin in the chat is asking, Orc license is it in Spanish? Well, I'm pretty sure it can be copied in Spanish.
Yeah, or translated into any sort of language.
Mm-hmm. That's legal. And so,
Yep.
just probably the last thing that we're going to look at when it comes to just this topic. This is the Creative Commons license released by Wizards of the Coast that encapsulates the material that is considered to be free to use in any 5.0 manual. And so this is what's going to read like any kind of player's handbook. Races, racial traits, dwarfs traits, elf traits, halfling traits, dragonborn and human traits, gnome and half-elf, half-orc and tiefling.
Like tieflings, half-orcs, and the classes, barbarians, clerics,
Yeah.
warlocks, you get the deal.
Yeah, and so there's a much longer list of 5.0 races, but those are the ones that are still copyrighted. So a class going on to classes: barbarian, bard, cleric, druid. So this is a 403-page document. So yeah, we're not going to be able to go through the entirety of it. Yeah, so that's paladin. And so anything that is effectively going to be written in a 5.0 style manual, anything that is universal and capable of being used by that author, is located in this document. Which also kind of accounts for how large this thing is. This is, once again, more than 400 pages.
Yeah, it's yeah, and when they're trying to copyright this much stuff and force others to pay to use it, you could get the really prominent idea that they're pretty scummy for doing this.
Well, honestly, this is probably, the best step that they could have done given the circumstances. Wizards already had the potential of ostracizing the entirety of its fan base through the want.
Yeah, they were actively saying that they wanted to get rid of their main fan base, right?
Mm-hmm. But so the fact that they're willing to give up this much material for open game licensing is actually a very good sign when it comes to that. We still have to think about the efficacy of all these copyrights, how it applies to the situation that we had previously seen with Jordan.
Is this ethical or even legal?
And whether or not any once or future Dungeons & Dragons material is still going to adhere to what are in these OGLs and open source documents.
Mm-hmm.
For that, we have to wait and see.
Yeah.
For that, we have to continue to ask
any
why.
Sort of morals or integrity just got flushed right down the toilet.
Well, I mean, when it comes to morals and ethics, who dictates them more than the people who are actually playing these games?
The mighty hungry billionaires?
Well, no, I mean the people who just have a tabletop and pencils and paper and
the dungeon master, right?
Mm-hmm. Whatever is shared privately among friends is never really going to be applied to copyright. And so it's through our
Yeah,
due
it's just that
diligence that
Watsuki
we
didn't really
continue.
seem to understand that.
Well, I mean, well, maybe they never can. Maybe they're in a position where they can't. But
Anyway.
what's most important is that we're going to continue to adhere to whatever might exist in these myriad of legal documents surrounding our favorite pastime. But at the end of the day, whatever we do at our own tabletops is effectively just something that is our creation, our intellectual property, something that magnificent that we have shared with friends and loved ones. And so, out of sheer duty for the enjoyment of tabletop RPGs, we continue to ask why.
Yep.
You have
You
another one?
always ask why.
You got another one? We
No,
usually end
just
each
this
one of
pretty
these. Yeah, we usually ask. We usually see if we can come up with a couple of final thoughts at the end of every single stream.
Yeah, I think that was a good one.
Yeah, OS Devin says here in chat.
Yeah, thanks for agreeing with us, OS7.
Okay, so we've talked about subject 1, we've talked about subject 2, now we're going to talk about subject 3. So,
Yes, number 3.
yes, we were in need of trying to find something that was going to cap off this discussion that really represented the originality a single person can put into a role-playing environment. And so we decided to do that by going a little bit back in time and showing you once again a good amount of material that was actually created by QB for
Yep,
the upcoming
a lot
book.
of it was made by me.
Mm-hmm. And so this is all going to be in the upcoming book, The Baron's Wasteland, which was going to be published through us, and hopefully, we will get the sub-license from Prowlers and Paragons, Mobius Worlds Games. Hopefully we'll get an opportunity in order to have them join us, and then they can be semi-official books. But
Yep,
as we
that
know,
means we'd actually be able to make money from them, right?
well, that, and then just have a wider base based on the publishing
Yep.
group, and
And
Mobius
this
Worlds
right here is
Publishing.
an overall map of the Barrens, which is basically one large supercontinent.
Mm-hmm. So the Barrens we had initially established was just effectively a completely barren dimension. At least that's what it was in the Brainy lore.
Yep, that's what it was before, our little crew showed up. And after quite a few shenanigans, was able to bring Mazelthod here and pretty much establish, all this life here.
Mazelthod is the demigod who has the patron of QB's warlock power.
Yep, basically she's a moth goddess of chaos and the balance of such things in order.
Yeah, so QB is free to just provide the entirety of the narration for this, but I'm still going to be on hand if there's
course,
something that
Brainy.
needs clarification. So, this is effectively the creation of a venue. And so it's through the creation of the venue we are planning on, writing storyline material, adventure material, everything that is needed within the concepts of a environment book, and then we'll bring that to publish.
Yes, sirree. Once everything's all polished and smoothed out.
Okay, so we have some specific areas of the map here. The Haven Hollow entrances. So we do need to provide an explanation of what it means when a hollow exists.
Haven Hollows are essentially places where Arthrophae have actually set up little places to stay after they started re-emerging after we freed a colony from Izeten.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, once again, there was a big bad named Izeten, and he was a controller of ice and basically brought about an ice age throughout the entirety of the continent.
Yep, and that initially pretty much destroyed a whole bunch of, pretty much destroyed all life, except for Arthrophae that seemed to have survived by staying below the surface.
Precisely. So, hollow entrances effectively denote what we use instead of dungeons in this kind of situation. Effectively, yeah, large insect-built pavilions that resemble anthills or wasp.
Yep,
Termite
hills, the
hills.
wasp nests, the termite mounds, all sorts of things like that.
Mhm. And
Pretty
particularly,
much, if it's a structure that any sort of thing can make, then it can be a Haven Hollow.
So, there are, just like regular hives, there's potential for, just exits to pop out of sides of walls, resulting in falls and any kind of myriad of labyrinthian tunnels underneath. Sections of pods where
There would be these things would be like mainly rooms that you would find different sorts of things in, like a place where these things store their food, or certain things that they keep a treasure in, such as things like cocoons. Some places where there are younger things of them being kept in, like the eggs. All sorts of things like that.
well, much like a real life nesting moth, is that it's possible that just a large cluster of treasure was made into a nest by an arthrophage that had moth-like inclinations.
Yep.
And arthrophage are basically the default being that lives in the Barren's Wasteland, humanoids that are part insect and take after the ancestries of various different types of insects.
And what these things are basically based on, well, they're based on the overall mythology of changelings.
Mhm.
And
So-
I decided to take that and make it like an actual bug. Like right here, there was the first other arthrophage we encountered when we went to the Barrens. There's a Beatrice Comecrackle, who, by the way, is not a bee, she's a wasp.
So, we characterize Beatrice as having a very violent temper.
Yeah, she's pretty much grouchy and grumpy. He hit Brainy with a broom once. And also, she had to force the rest of you guys, have to solve a puzzle in order to even get in. And since she was kind of holding me in there.
We closely equivalent Beatrice as being similar to a hag in another type of story.
Yep, except here, she's a sort of a witch who gets stronger through things like rage, because wasps and hornets and things like that.
Absolutely.
They scare me.
Yep, sheer anger.
Yep, sheer anger and rage towards literally anything. It could even be something as simple as a rock in your shoe, and that would be enough to make her stronger.
So, upon meeting our party and becoming friends with QB, she immediately labeled him her grandson. And so...
Yep, it was essentially trying to keep the party away from him so she could have him alter herself.
That's created something of a branch relationship between arthrophages in which there are no specific terms for friends, but there are definitely several arthrophage that will adopt another and then give them the appropriate name in the family tree.
Yep, pretty much. It's it doesn't even matter if they're different sorts of kinds of arthropod, here, a spider and a wasp. That's she wanted to, and so QB was essentially her grandson.
And so here's some additional characters that were created for the environment.
Yep, and Dairoko, the grandson of one of Brainy's characters, an Ice Dragon warrior, who wants to be just like his grandpa, and often researches books and practices fighting.
Then we have
Havoc here, who we met in the episode where Beasley was introduced, and Cube actually managed to escape his imprisonment first by befriending this hellhound, who was supposed to be working against them, but instead was He was happy that he was actually like given some kindness, genuinely, that he decided to help us out.
And then finally we have
This is Vanessa. We actually found her while doing some of Otto's quests during while we had to go in Brainy's homeworld, which the talking woodland critters there talked about some sort of a monster in the woods, which it actually turned out to be another one of Cube's kind that had been accidentally transported there due to some shenanigans caused by Marin's nemesis.
all right.
And like we mentioned with Beatrice, Vanessa here is taken to being Cube's older sister.
Mm-hmm. All right, so these last three I just wanted to include because these were just redesigns that were recently drawn by QB.
Yep, drawn by
of the
me,
main
and
cast.
possibly redesigns of what we could look like in the future.
Mm-hmm. And so this is the one that she had done for Brainy, and then Otto, and then that's the one
And
for
then there's
QB.
me,
I should have placed.
and also there was one of Marin too.
Yeah, I should place the one for Marin. I don't know why it wasn't in the doc, but there it is.
Yep, and there's Marin.
Mm-hmm. So,
Yep, I took lots of inspirations from things like old anime, like you said before.
mm-hmm. And this is all to announce that we're going to be working on a manga version of the Meowing Portal, which is going to take the form of a web cartoon that we're going to be publishing on Webtoon.
That's correct. We're gonna be having our own little manga series.
So we're mostly going to be retelling stories that we have already done in the actual play. But
Yep, and most likely that pattern will continue as we continue like with our little games.
mm-hmm. And so we're going to create, a few expanded universe elements. The first thing that I would like to give away is that we're going to establish that QB had always been a part of the party, even though in the first two actual play episodes, QB hadn't joined us yet. Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't joined you guys yet.
So we're going to rewrite that in a situation where QB was following the main cast around but had not been discovered by them yet.
Yeah, and the only real possibility chance that he got to actually approach was again when he pretty much scared the crap out of the bartender by being in the cellar.
Mm-hmm.
I still remember, like you said, it was some sort of scarecrow thing.
Goldfish Gurney, thank you very much for tuning into the stream. He's saying, yay for a manga.
Yeah, that's right. Yay for manga.
I'm working on the first couple of pages of that, and I'm hoping to have it completed by the rest of the week. Whereas these game books, we're hoping to have them completed by the middle of this fall.
Sometime in the fall.
I'm hoping for October or November.
Yes, sir.
So, there you have it. Really great for an introduction to this channel. As you've learned about me.
A reintroduction to be exact.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we've learned about B, we've learned about QB and their environment. And so, we're going to be coming back to future episodes of Brainy the RPG Cat with more of the same.
Yep.
I'm going to be working on a wiki for the entirety of the Brainy lore, and I'm going to publish that through World Anvil, which is an online site dedicated to creating lore for specific types of game engines, including the Prowlers and Paragons engine that we use for the actual plays. And we're going to make another...
I will be focusing on writing up more lore and fleshing out more of the Barrens Wastelands document and making more art.
We're going to do that episode probably this coming Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, right here on twitch.tv/BrainyTheRPGCat. That's writing
and
the
by the way,
RPG.
I found out what the names of the holes are. They're called spiracles.
Spiracles, that's what they're called. Spiracles is the holes that are on insects' legs and arms in order to help them with
pretty much with ordinary bugs, they have holes in them that help them breathe better.
Mm-hmm.
And so here with the Arthrophae, as a whole, they have holes in their body.
Mm-hmm. Precisely.
Often through their hair Her legs and forearms are the most common places for these holes.
Mhm. So yeah, look forward to content specifically like this from us from this point forward. Far
Yep,
fewer
we can't
Let's
wait to see you
Plays.
again.
Lots more lore building, lots more world building.
And lots more, honestly, quite a few more things to building.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we're looking forward to it. So thank you, everybody.
Yep, and we hope that you're looking forward to it too.
Thank you, everybody who's tuned in. We're going to go ahead. We're going to do a raid. Let's see. Who would we like to see? Who's going to be on right now?
Yes, let's see who's on.
Lady Zuina, pretty good. So is Soulstone VTuber. Ramia, cranial activity. Let me see. I think we'll go over to well, you know, I really do want to go to something that's tabletop. So we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna raid Tiefling Melissa. Tiefling Melissa,
Alright, sounds good to me.
A-lister when it comes to tabletop RPG, particularly when it comes to material written in Dungeons and Dragons. They're in the middle of doing a birthday subathon right now, so let's go ahead. Let's pay them a visit. Give them the views and wish them a happy birthday. So.
Yep. You check her out. Wish her a happy birthday.
So thank you everybody once again for tuning in. Once again, BRNY means smart. Nothing's too hard if you use your head. Always be the change you want to see in the world. Have a good night, everybody, and thank you very much for watching.
Good night, everybody.